Powerful cold front is rolling into town, and one of Denver's largest cold weather shelters may not be open because of a disagreement between the mayor and city council. The former DoubleTree Hotel, now called the Aspen, has a ballroom space which fits up to 200 people. The city utilized that space as an emergency cold weather shelter as recently as November. But last month, city council approved a contract for the shelter, which the mayor's office says does not allow them to use that ballroom as a cold weather shelter. Advocates say people who have come there in the past to get out of the cold are starting to show up. The mayor's office says they want to open that shelter space this weekend, but need city council's approval to do it.
We have all the pieces in place. We have the site, we have everything. We just need to get the building open. They care every bit as much about people experiencing homelessness as we do. And so I'm very, very optimistic that we're going to come to some resolution.
Councilmember Florel Vidres told us she hasn't received a formal request from the mayor's office to activate the shelter. We reached out to others on council, haven't heard back. Mayor's office said that they're hopeful they'll come to an agreement by the weekend. Cold is going to be here soon. For how soon? Let's bring in 9 News meteorologist Corey Reppenhagen. And Corey, when we say coldest so far this winter season.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system because we have not experienced anything even near this just yet. Normally we would be, but this is our first shot to get down to 0 or below and wind chills in the -10 to -20. That's why we have a weather impact alert starting Friday night here in the Front Range and Eastern Plains, going all the way through the day on Saturday. The coldest air of the season so far, the coldest temperature we've even seen this year in Denver this season, 8 degrees. -10 to -20 wind chills. Denver could see that -10. There's also going to be 1 to 2 inches of snow across the area. And that'll be Friday night into Saturday. And we do have the cold air advisory out on the Eastern Plains. This is where the coldest air will be and the strongest winds. We could see those wind chills get as low as -20 and -22. So I'll have more on that forecast. That includes the snow coming up in just a few minutes.
The Colorado Department of Corrections cannot keep up with its growing prison population. DOC is asking state legislators to rush them some emergency funding again so they can add hundreds of additional prison beds. But the Democrats in charge at the state capitol say they're not going to move that funding unless the DOC comes up with a plan to get more inmates out of prison to free up space. Yesterday, the state's Joint Budget Committee found out the inmate population is 660 inmates larger than what the state has budgeted for this year. DOC asked for $2.4 million to add more beds. But state legislators say this is an ongoing problem. They just approved nearly $3 million back in September, part of an emergency plan to address overcrowding and release some parole-eligible inmates. Democrats say that was intended as just a stopgap and that the department needs a long-term strategy to figure out how to get eligible people out of prison as opposed to just constantly paying for more beds.
We have people there. We need to feed them. We need to take care of them. We need to get them medical care. But until there is a plan or plans to address why the releases are lagging the admissions and why that's changed and what we can do about that, it's very hard for me to support more beds.
All 4 Democrats voted to reject the extra funding on the JBC. 2 Republicans on the committee voted to approve it. They said the prison overcrowding is starting to spill over into local jails. It's burdening local governments. In a statement today, Corrections said that they are already restricting their intakes and that the, quote, partial budget, as they called it, means that they'll have to make difficult operational decisions to maintain safety for staff and for inmates. Colorado's voters have elected just 1 Republican governor in 50 years. That is not keeping contenders out of the 2026 GOP primary. And tonight, 4 of the busload of Republicans running for their party's nomination will debate in Weld County. Marshall Zellinger joins us from Fort Lupton. And Marshall, debate stage has a little bit of everything. You got a well-known legislator trying to pull the party back from the far right, controversial sheriff who wants to work on deportations, and a MAGA podcaster who wants top Democrats executed in public.
That would be a little bit of everything, Kyle, but the candidate who's raised the most money so far is notably absent from this event. But let's start with who is here. Photojournalist Amy Hunter is going to show you what's going underway in the community room where this debate's about to get started. I'll stay in the hallway. It'll be interesting to hear how the candidates defend or push back on President Trump's retribution in Colorado. You can see what's going on the stage. The candidates there, we'll go over them in a moment. It'll be interesting to see if they try to appeal to the Republican base that they'll need to win a primary, or or break away from full support of Trump to seem electable after the primary. We'll hear from State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer, Teller County Sheriff Jason Mikesell, Josh Griffin, who was once the oldest college football player when he walked on at CSU at the age of 33 a number of years ago, and Joe Altman, the MAGA podcaster known for calling many Democrats treasonous and wanting them hung to death in public. Political races are dictated by money and fundraising. Of the four participating tonight, Kirkmeyer has raised the most, followed by Mikesell. Griffin has $632 raised, and Altman just entered the race at the end of the year. That's why his number is 0. Two other candidates declined the invitation here tonight. Both are ministry leaders. Victor Marks, in just 3 months, has raised $620,000, and State Representative Scott Bottoms raised $110,000, but he has spent most of his funds already. He's got a little less than $10,000 still in the bank. Tina Peters will probably be a big conversation tonight, Kyle, especially when we hear answers from Joe Altman. It's about to get underway. We're going to get the camera set up and get you some recaps at 9 and 10.
It's interesting, Marshall. I mean, one of the situations for the Colorado Republican Party in recent years has been that President Trump obviously dominates everything in Republican politics. He's wildly unpopular in Colorado. But even Barb Kirkmeyer, who you would describe as the most centrist of the candidates in the race, she's a strong Trump supporter. So, I mean, all of the folks out there are pro-Trump Republicans in an anti-Trump state.
And you have to be, especially if you're going to win a Republican primary, and we haven't even talked about the Greg Lopez factor, who was supposed to be here tonight, then he's no longer a Republican, he's going to run as unaffiliated. But to win a primary in the first place, to be able to present why you should be elected against the Democrat running for governor, is be pro-Trump so that the Republican voters choose you. And then do you pivot at all to seem more centrist? You have to win the base first.
Marshall, go ahead and pivot back into the room. Thank you for being up there to cover that for us tonight. House lawmakers have voted to advance the final spending bills of the fiscal year, and this puts Congress on track to avoid a partial government shutdown at the end of the month. House Democrats, including Colorado's Democratic reps, tried and failed to hold up that funding for Homeland Security over concerns about increasingly aggressive immigration enforcement. This year's funding bill holds ICE funding steady, same levels as prior years. It does include some new oversight provisions. Provides funds for ICE agents to wear body cameras and requires Homeland Security to provide regular updates on how the department is spending money on ICE operations and detention facilities. But nearly every House Democrat voted against the funding anyway. They cited the spike in ICE custody deaths, violent clashes with protesters in places like Minneapolis, and a newly leaked internal memo suggesting that ICE agents can enter homes without a warrant signed by a judge. The Homeland Security funding was rolled into a $1.2 trillion spending package before it was sent to the Senate. That now puts pressure on Senate Democrats to pass it. That won't happen until next week. It'll be just days before a deadline on January 30th to avoid that partial government shutdown. Well, if folks didn't know his name before this week, certainly Broncos fans at least are well aware of Jarrett Stidham. And so are a bunch of folks around the country, people now swooping up his trading cards at prices many times multiple what they were a week ago. Trading card stores here in town are just trying to get their hands on some to sell. Spencer Soisher has that.
There's an old football saying, the backup quarterback is the most popular guy in town. And in this town, it's really true.
Thanks for calling Mike. This is Sean. How can I help you?
Sean McCandless sells cards at Mike's Stadium Sports Cards in Aurora, where you won't find a Jarrett Stidham card.
Right now we have 0.
Not because Mike's didn't have any, or none exist, but because the backup quarterback is now starting quarterback popular.
We had 5 or 6 over the weekend, and by Monday they were all gone. Everyone went crazy for them.
Card types and conditions vary, but
Jarrett Stidham, you could probably pick him up for $1 or less before this week.
that's not the case anymore.
$30 and then $49.
Really?
Yeah. So he's gone up 644% since since he got announced.
Stiddy up, baby, it's on.
Sports memorabilia journalist Jeff Morris has been tracking Stiddy card sales on eBay since Bo Nix's injury. He says the market's nuts.
In the 48-hour window between them and 2 days later on the Monday, there were on eBay more than 2,500 Jarrett Stidham cards sold.
Morris says that's not common, and to think of dollar cards like penny stocks.
It's like you're taking a flyer, a low a low-risk flyer.
The value of the card often increases based on how a player is
If you
performing.
got it, you're probably like, it's a Jarrett Stidham card. Now, and especially if they win, all of a sudden you're like, man, I'm sitting on a gold mine.
This city may be backing Stiddy, and it could come with some money too.
If you have any, we'd be happy to buy them for you.
So after we left Mike's today, the store called me and said, I don't know what this does to your story, but a guy just showed up at the store with 25 Stidham cards, and we bought them all. Maybe the guy that brought them in is the one that's swooping them all up on eBay. Now Mike has to figure out where to price those cards and whether to hold on to them through this weekend and up until this weekend.
Yeah, a guy comes in with a hoodie and a hat on, says his name is Jarrett Stidham, and he's got all these Jarrett Stidham, a little mustache, right? Listen, he's gonna make some money. So wait a second. So people buy these cards, right? We all hope that Stidham tears it up this weekend. But if he's pedestrian, then they just go back to like being a buck again?
That's why I asked. I was like, all right, could this get worse? Like, could this be the worst investment of your life? He's like, where they're at right now because of the story and where it's gonna stand in Broncos lore, hopefully in a good way. It can't get worse than it is right now.
Okay.
So go buy a bunch of them.
Yeah, the
maybe
idea.
50.
Yeah, the idea of trading cards is an investment. Yeah, there's a full 1993 Topps baseball set under my bed that suggests otherwise. Spencer Soisher, thank you. President Trump promised retribution against Colorado, then denied disaster aid for fires and floods. Every member in Colorado's congressional delegation is asking for a second chance. And a theater production, bringing Boulder's Jewish community together when they need it most.
And now, after everything that's happened this year, it really just becomes more and more important with time.
A rabbi reflects on Fiddler on the Roof. Next. Colorado's entire congressional delegation is appealing to the Trump administration to reconsider its decision to deny federal disaster declarations for wildfires and floods in Colorado. FEMA said the damage from the Elk and Lee fires and the flooding in western Colorado was not severe enough last year to warrant a disaster declaration that would have opened up additional federal funding for state recovery efforts. The Lee fire was the 5th largest by area in state history, burned more than 137,000 acres. Elk fire tore through about 15,000 acres. Fires are estimated to have caused a combined $27 million in damage. The flooding in and around the Pagosa Springs area caused around $13 million in damage. Democratic Governor Jared Polis formally appealed the decision back in December. Let's chat with Corey Reppenhagen again. So, I mean, we're all talking about the cold, but we're kind of like on the tail end of this big monster that the South and the Midwest is all worked up about.
It's true. This is a massive storm, and it's going to do some damage across this country. And we're really just getting scraped again, but just this time on the bottom side. This big red area here, that is a massive winter storm warning, and a watch goes all the way to New York. So it's going to be a very potent storm, snow and ice. We are getting mostly the cold here in Colorado. Let me walk you through Futurecast here. This is Futurecast with wind chill. So the numbers you see here are wind chill temperatures. Watch tomorrow morning, this air is going to slide in from the northeast and cover the entire eastern part of Colorado. We'll get snow flurries isolated throughout this area on Friday. Temperatures are dropping. You'll see these wind chill temperatures drop into the negatives, especially out on the eastern plains. This is overnight Friday and the Saturday. That's when we'll have the most snow accumulation. It's not looking like much. Light snow lasting a few hours. We might get an inch or two out of that, but the temperatures continue to drop all the way through the day on Saturday. Not too much sunshine as we go through Saturday. And let me walk you all the way to 1 o'clock Sunday. Broncos kickoff, 5 degrees. That's the wind chill temperature, so it's going to stay cold all the way through Sunday, Kyle.
A rabbi in Boulder is briefly stepping from the synagogue to the stage. A local production of Fiddler on the Roof combines theater, faith, community at a time when Boulder is healing. Our Evan Krugel shows us how the familiar story is taking on new meaning.
May we all find moments in community and with each other that we feel safe.
Rabbis tend to be good at speaking in front of people, but most prefer the synagogue to the stage.
Theater was always in my blood.
Rabbi Mark Soloway used to be a professional actor. Now he leads the congregation at B'nai Shalom in Boulder, which is helping put together a production of Fiddler on the Roof, where the rabbi plays the lead role of Tevye.
It's interesting to have a practicing Jew and a teacher of Judaism playing a very Jewish character.
It's a show that holds extra significance after the anti-Semitic attack on the Pearl Street Mall last summer.
I'm the rabbi of the congregation where many of the people who were there that day were injured, and the person ultimately who died was a congregant of mine. So it was an incredibly hard time for our community.
And now, after everything that's happened this year, it really just becomes more and more important with time.
Sarah Nowak is the director of the show and decided to organize a flash mob performance at Boulder's annual menorah lighting in December, which takes place on the steps of the courthouse where the attack happened.
Tradition, the daughters.
And as we did it, it was just took on this immense power of being like, of course we have to do this. Hanukkah is about resilience, Hanukkah is about survival, Hanukkah is about having the chutzpah to say, in spite of everything, we're still here and we're lighting candles.
Tickets for all 8 shows sold out within minutes.
It sold out very quickly.
It did.
And
we had to stagger the release to make sure the close family members of the cast got first dibs.
They're hoping those lucky enough to come feel a sense of history, healing, and resilience. For Next, I'm Evan Krugel.
It's been 10 years since the Broncos and Patriots met in an AFC championship. The real ones remember. We'll catch up with one next. The last time the Denver Broncos were this good, the New England Patriots were riding high too. They met in the AFC championship, like Sundays, 10 years ago. Our Mike Grady, who you'll note has an unmistakable New England accent, caught up with a Broncos superfan to reminisce and look ahead.
How big of a fan are you, Catherine?
Oh, wow. You know, I live and breathe the Broncos. I mean, I have ever since I was a kid, but I'm a huge fan. I go to all home games. I've never missed one.
What is the game this upcoming Sunday?
Yeah, what a game this is. It's a complete repeat deja vu of 10 years ago. So playing the Patriots in this last game to get to the Super Bowl.
What is that game like for folks who haven't gotten to experience it?
You know, it is like a mini Super Bowl.
What's the environment like towards opposing teams?
You're gonna have your rival teams where you don't, you know, the hospitality ends at kickoff, you know, you're nice up until that point and then it's game on. But I don't like seeing hateful fans and treating fans inappropriately. That's not who we should be as Bronco fans. And I believe they have the right to enjoy the game.
Even Patriots fans?
Even Patriot fans.
What should we do if the Broncos win? What should we do if the Broncos don't win?
So I think, you know, be positive. You know, at the end of the day, it's a game. Did you have a good time? Did you enjoy it? Was it just exhilarating like for the rest of us? There's always the next game.
There's always the next game.
Yep.
For the Broncos, what's that next game going to be?
Well, Super Bowl, of course. We're going to the Super Bowl.
I feel like she could really use something to bring the decor together, like a common theme.
Yeah, maybe the Broncos?
Maybe the Broncos. How about that? Your feedback's next. Feedback from John. Why didn't City Council and the Mayor's office have the problem solved about the cold weather shelter when it was warm out? Good question, John. Tim says, imagine being homeless, standing in the cold, waiting on the mayor while the heated ballroom sits empty. Tim says, open it. Carolyn, tell Denver City Council to get their poop in a group and get that ballroom open. It's one of my favorite phrases, Carolyn. To use another, if they don't fix this by tomorrow, we're going to be riding them like a rented mule. See you next time.